Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 215 of the Civil Gore podcast. I'm your host, Tim.
And this is Brian. And we have a guest on tonight that I know is super important in Tim's podcasting journey.
Yeah, so Jeff Tucker is the host of the 91 Reasons podcast. And this is one of the podcasts I first started listening to way back in 2014. I think is when he started it. And I started listening to it shortly after he began that podcast. You know, we always say Coaster Radio was our inspiration for like the format of the show and the kind of the friendly banter back and forth about a subject we both love. But 91 Reasons to me was kind of the thing that pushed me over the edge to actually do the podcast, only because Jeff started this podcast literally out of his car. He just did it kind of as a thing where when he was on, that's why it's called 91 Reasons, when he was on the 91 Interstate, whatever they call it in California. He would just talk and make a show out of it. And that's when I realized, hey, you don't need like a giant studio or anything like that to make a podcast. You can just, talk into a mic and produce a show. So that was kind of the inspiration behind that. So I've always wanted Jeff on there because I really, really love his podcast. And then he started doing a great YouTube channel with videos of his family and stuff. And it's been something I've always really, really enjoyed. So it was quite a treat to get Jeff on and talk about 80s, growing up in the 80s. Now, forewarning, this interview is a lot of old guys talking about growing up in the 80s. Yeah. So if our younger listeners out there will probably roll in their eyes. But, Jeff is one of those guys that's just a big pop culture nerd. He loves movies. He loves the 80s. He loves all that stuff. And it's something near and dear to my heart as well. So it was just one of those guests that was just a really fun time to sit around and talk to. Almost not even like in an interview style. We're just kind of chatting and talking about mutual interests and stuff that, common memories we have of growing up in that time period.
Yes, and it's probably the first interview you'll ever hear in the same discussion, video store rental and carpet cleaning rentals in the same thing, which I thought was a good connection there. But yeah, he's one. It's funny, the people in the 80s seem to always have that grew up in the 80s have this instant connection. They always will have stories that they will tell and discuss, and it's just so funny because it's like, for people that don't understand the 80s, probably are just sitting there thinking we're nuts. But it's like you really won't understand that kind of nostalgia back in the 80s, because like the stuff you're seeing now was like, it's like commonplace now, was like in movies in the 80s, like basically showing that like this could be the future. I mean, yes, we don't have the flying cars, but based on people the way to drive, I really don't think the flying car should ever exist anymore. I used to be all on board the flying car train until, you drive in New York enough, you just don't trust people with cars on the ground, let alone flying cars. So.
All right, well, let's get right to it. This is our first job. All right, Brian, so I'm kind of trying to catch up on some TV, so I haven't watched a lot of movies, but I did catch up on one that I was very excited to see, and that is Chucky, the TV series. And this one is, I've enjoyed it quite a bit. Now, I will say my one negative, I guess, and it's not a very strong negative, is that this one is very middle school centric. The story kind of centers around this young middle schooler that gets a Chucky doll. And he's kind of an outcast, and Chucky kind of becomes a little bit of a protector to him. So it's very kid-centric, despite the subject matter. Now, the subject matter is definitely all Chucky gore, all profanity. I mean, all that stuff is in there. So don't be fooled by that. But because it's kind of kid-centric, all the adults in the show are really either very, very unlikable or complete idiots. I mean, completely ineffective at doing anything resembling parenting. So that's the only negative to the show. It's kind of irked me is how either dislikable or ineffective and dumb these adults are. None of their actions make any sense whatsoever. But the kids are great. So I will say the other thing I loved about the show is they really, really cater to Child's Play fans. There are a lot of references to the movies. There are a lot of references to Chucky lore. If you have not seen every Child's Play movie, there are things you're going to miss in this. So if you really need to have a good horror background on the Child's Play series to really get the most out of this television series, which I thought was kind of cool because as a fan of the movies and somebody who's seen all the movies multiple times, it was a lot of fun to see like some of that lore fleshed out in like a full series season that they couldn't do in just like one movie.
Yeah, no, I need to catch up. I think I'm only on episode 3, but yeah, no, I like the same thing. I think that whole thing with the the adults being silly. I think because if you think about it, it is after all a kid's toy, and it was like, those based on what Chucky was kind of, modeled after originally, it was My Buddy doll kind of things. The kids were loners. The kids had each, really didn't, kids didn't have much other than like the doll, if you look at it that way. So if you think about it, it's like almost like a nod to what the doll was based on to begin with a little, which is kind of funny. All kids look at like adults as stupid, so if you look at it from that view, it's actually kind of an interesting take on it. But I do think though, it's like funny. It's like, it's like they're trying to like walk that line of the tip, the fan service, which they do a good job of without making it overly fan servicey at the same time to lose like a new storyline, which is hard to do, as we've seen a million times in other franchises, and not just horror, just in any franchise. So I think that's one of its strengths, is it finds a way to walk that line of giving you tons of fan stuff, but also not to the expense of the actually new story they're trying to tell.
No, quite to the contrary. I mean, I would say it's fan service only for like really diehard fans.
Yeah.
Like, if you're just a casual Chucky fan, you're going to miss a lot of the stuff they put in there for fans, which I thought was kind of cool. But that doesn't mean you couldn't enjoy it if you're not. I mean, still the story's cohesive enough that even if you're not a Child's Play fan, you could still follow what's going along. So I thought it's really good. I think I've got 2 more episodes to wrap up the season, but I'm really enjoying the heck out of it, and I think it's probably the best I could hope for in terms of seeing more Chucky on a screen. So I'm really excited about it.
So I watched 2 things that I've gotten off of the monolith here. One of them is Double Walker. That was the one we mentioned. We first saw the trailer in our dismemberment. We thought it looked really cool. It's about this kind of like that blonde girl. She kind of is like almost like investigating her own murders, but as it goes on, you realize that she's dead, and she's trying to. That's not a spoiler, you can tell from the movie. But and she tries to piece together her story, and it's just done really well. I saw some negative stuff on it, and I don't know why. I thought like a lot of the negatives people were talking about, I was like, I don't see that. I mean, I thought it was amazing. The beautiful, it was beautifully shot. I think the cast is really good. Sylvie Mix, who's the lead, is absolutely incredible, and I think she's like a star in the making. So I'm really not sure what the a lot of people that they had these issues on it. I thought it was really cool. I think you'll like it, Tim, a lot. The other one I had bought was the Never Open the Door, because it always had that really unique cover art where it's like the girl's just like kind of turning, the blonde girl. It's like you just kind of see her back. This one is interesting. So this one is like if you took a modern day movie, okay, put it in black and white to kind of give it like like the 60s kind of feel, but then kind of make it an 80s plot. That's kind of what you get with this. But it's weird though, because a lot of people. I saw a lot of people bashing this, and while I see some of their criticisms, I actually really enjoyed it. I don't know. The lead in it, you'll recognize. She was in is Jessica Sonnenborn. She was the one that played the lead in that first Jimmy Dempster film we saw. Remember that one?
Oh, yeah.
So after that, I always seen some of her movies. She's got a lot of good horror cred, and I thought she was really good in this. Definitely had some creepy moments. It was definitely you get a little Twilight Zone vibe. You get a little bit of a attempted Hitchcock vibe, I guess. It's just really cool because it basically takes place. It's one we could have used for Thanksgiving, because it takes place on Thanksgiving, and there's this like a stranger comes to the door. They open it up, and he kind of projectile vomits on Jessica's character, and then like lands to the ground and just says, "Never open the door," and then just mayhem ensues from that point. There's a lot of weird stuff's going on, one of these things where you're always kind of on your toes trying to figure out what's going on. But actually, I don't know. It's like I saw a lot of negative reviews, again, I enjoyed it. I don't know. And it's a pretty short movie too. I think it's like 80 minutes or something. So I watched them both, and like I was like, no time had passed. I felt like that day I watched them back to back.
Nice.
But yeah, both good. And like I said, it's shot in black and white. So, but not like it's still modernized in a way that like it's like they're on cell phones, so it's not like you think it's back in the time period. Like cell phones are a major part of this movie. So
interesting.
Really, yeah, it's a weird juxtaposition of that because usually when you try and go retro, that's the way you can get out of the whole cell phone in a horror movie kind of thing. But yeah, but anyway, I liked it. I thought it was actually enjoyable. So I'm glad they're both in the monolith there because I could see watching them again.
Nice. Well, let's get right into it. Now, this is going to be kind of an interesting episode in terms of our main feature. So we're featuring the Frighteners, but we decided as we were doing the interview, we talked so much in the interview about the Frighteners with Jeff, and he actually watched it before the interview so that he could speak to it. We decided not to really do the main feature segment in this episode. Instead, we're just going to let the talk during the interview serve as our discussion of the film for the episode. So you'll hear us, in addition to all the 80s talk and talk about working at the video stores and that kind of thing, you'll also hear us talk later in the interview about the Frighteners and what Jeff thought of it, what we thought of it. So yeah, it's kind of a blend of our normal segment and the guest segment.
Yeah, I will say too, after I didn't realize the version I had also had the director's cut on it. So I went and watched the director's cut after talking to Jeff about it. And it's like you'll hear in the interview, but like I know you guys had much more problems with it, but like overall, I still find it an enjoyable movie to watch. I still like watching it, even though it does have its faults. And it's funny, I know the faults stood out more when I watched it after our discussion again.
Yeah,
but and Julie kind of walked in when it was on there, and she was questioning some of the things. She pointed out the weird things right away, and I'm like, yeah, we kind of discussed this. There's really no rules to this.
Yeah.
But overall, I just enjoy it because I like all the people in it. I love Jeffrey Combs. I love Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
Of course, Dee Wallace. Yeah. So it's like I still enjoy the movie, even though I can see it's like on a movie level, there's many flaws and things that decisions I might have made different, but still, overall, I still enjoy it every time I watch it. So,
all right, well, let's get right to it. This is our interview with host of 91 Reasons and Tucker Time on YouTube, Jeff Tucker, the voice. Hey guys, well, you have all often heard us talk about our inspirations for starting this podcast, and our guest tonight was instrumental, whether he knows it or not, in pushing us to go for it and create Civil Gore. He's the host of the 91 Reasons podcast, an author and family man of Tucker Time on YouTube. Please welcome to the show, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
That's very kind. Thank you. I hope I can live up to that.
I always like that your nickname is the voice too, because I joke with Tim that, that he has these dulcet tones. So it's kind of funny. We get the dulcet tones and the voice on the same episode. That's pretty cool. So
yeah. So we we've been talking about having you on the show for a while, because I've listened to 91 Reasons since the very beginning, practically. I mean, that's been years and years. When did you start the show? I don't remember.
2014.
Well, there you go. So it's been 8 years now. And I first heard about it on the Season Pass podcast because you would guest on there from time to time.
That was my inspiration.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny how these podcasts like breed other podcasts. That's happened to us quite a bit. But I heard you talking on there about your podcast, 91 Reasons. And I said, I'll give that a shot because I think you had mentioned something about 80s or whatever.
Yeah.
We're all children of the 80s. So, and I gave it a listen and I was like, man, this is so crazy because this guy's on the West Coast and he lived the exact same thing I lived because we all grew up. That 80s culture it doesn't matter which coast you were on.
I get that a lot. And the thing I always get is people will write me a little message and go, it's insane to think you were doing exactly the same thing I did. And somehow retroactively, it makes you feel a little less lonely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which I think is real nice.
Yeah, that is nice. Yeah, it's funny. We've had other guests, notably David Weiner. He was a former Entertainment Weekly journalist. He headed up Famous Monsters of Filmland. And he did some really fantastic horror documentaries called In Search of Darkness about 80s horror. but he was kind of the same way. He's like a total 80s like pop culture nerd. And it was just, we just hit it off instantly, because I think anybody that grew up in that era, you can always find stuff to talk about.
Well, yeah. And I think looking at it now, those of us who grew up in the 80s are watching 80s culture being turned into this product. You know, the 80s now have their own color palette, their own design look, their own architecture. And I keep telling my kids, like, yeah, that's not how it was.
Yeah.
You know, there's a meme that's like, I can't describe to somebody how brown the 80s were and how long the days were, because in modern times, every minute is filled with something. People push the light to cross the street and the phone comes out. People wait for the bus, the phone comes out. So there's always this something to look at. We didn't have that. And that's why I think we dream so much, is because we spent so much time. Like, I try to explain to my kids what it was like to drive cross country, because we did it every summer, and to spend 4 days in the back of a station wagon with a book, a magazine, a notepad of paper, or that stupid football game with just red lights.
Oh my God. Yes. I had that one. I had the hockey. I had the thing. And I love how the same player, which was that little rectangular guy, played for all sports. You know, he was like ahead of Bo Jackson, if you think about it. You know, he was multi-faceted in sports. He played basketball. He just like turned a different way. And that was it.
You know what?
He was.
You're right. They should induct Red Blip into the Sports Hall of Fame.
He should be in each one too, you know, like his own thing. I think we need to start that. We'll start that trend going. We'll start like a Kickstarter to get him in to like Red Blip.
Yeah, I know this morning I was trying to think of conversation topics and stuff for this interview tonight, and I was thinking of kind of the same thing, like how my kids will never understand that you could not get stuff on demand. You could not get movies on demand. I mean, a movie came out to the theater, and if you didn't see it at the theater, for all you knew, you would never see it your rest of your life unless it came on television. And I kind of thought about how the 80s was interesting in that way, and that it will never be replicated. That experience of not being able to have something tangible on demand will never be replicated again.
Right. Or screaming to your sister or brother, it's back on. And they're sailing across the house because the show's about to start. And if you're not there, you're going to miss it. I remember there was my favorite sitcom of all time was an 80s one called It's Your Move. It only had a season and a half. It starred Jason Bateman. It was by the guys who did Married with Children, right before they did Married with Children. And there's a 2-part episode where the main character, Matthew Burton, creates a band out of skeletons, like on strings, and he gets into huge trouble. And the night that the second episode aired, we went to Disneyland. So I thought, I'm never going to know what happened. And it took years. I was at a comic book show, and you know the guy that sells the bootleg DVDs, he had the It's Your Move box set. And I was like, oh my God, a quest that was began years ago will finally be completed.
Yeah,
that's funny.
It's crazy.
It's funny you said that too, because there was a story that goes through my family was when I was a kid, like, you know, there were TV events, you know, going on. Mm-hmm. And one of them was every year on Thanksgiving watching the King Kong, and which was always on our local station in New York. And then that and the Wizard of Oz would play once a year on TV. And so like there were the 2 moments I looked forward to more than anything all year were those that day and those nights. And I remember one time, I don't know what I did, something really horrible, but I was punished by saying you're not allowed to watch TV. And it happened to fall on the Wizard of Oz day, but my mom knew she just didn't have the heart to take that away, so she rescinded the punishment a day so I could make sure I watch it, because you know it's not like now I literally own I think 6 different copies of Wizard of Oz, you know, on Blu-ray, the special edition Blu-ray, the 70th, 80th, whatever anniversary, you know, kind of thing. So when you say that, it's true. It's like, you know, back then you miss something,
you set your life around it.
Yeah.
I had to set my life around it, you know, like I can't go to that thing because this is going to be on TV.
Yeah. And like now it's like you could literally go to that thing and like watch it on the way, you know, it's like,
oh, yeah. I can remember in 1984, we got our first VCR. My mother brought home a beta from work. Someone had sold her. a top-loading Betamax, which I actually found it at the thrift store. I have it in my living room here. It's one of my favorite possessions because it reminds me so much of my childhood. But we went to the Video Depot at Norwalk Square, which was the only video store around. And I couldn't believe it. I could rent Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with Gene Wilder and not wait for, like you said, the one time it aired that year. And I remember, like, I watched it 6 times until that tape had to go back.
Yeah, that's amazing. I remember the first time we and Kevin, by the way, guys, my brother Kevin's on the show. We invited him.
Yeah, we forgot that we gave Jeff such a nice interview. We forgot Kevin, and he's been sitting there so nice.
My poor brother,
patiently.
don't even give him an introduction.
Please welcome Nobel Prize winner Kevin.
Right.
But he may remember this. Kev was the first time I remember renting a VHS tape is when our stepdad, and I don't know if he owned that VCR or he rented the VCR because they were expensive back then.
Yeah.
And we would go to his house and we would go off and rent these videotapes and bring them back. And I thought it was amazing that what do you mean you could just walk into the store and pick a movie and take it home and watch it? It was a really novel experience at the time. Looking back on it, and I just think I try to tell my kids this stuff, and you can't.
No, they have no concept.
There's no concept. You can't.
I used to be the assistant manager at Blockbuster Video, and we used to sell VCPs, which were video cassette players. They weren't recorders. They just played tapes, and they were built into a plastic suitcase, and they were on this big rack. Remember, there's a big rack across from the register, and they go, the customer would like to rent a VCP. So I'd have to, as the manager, go over with my little keys and unlock the apparatus and take it off and take it to the register. And I think they were about $25 a day to rent. And a family would come in on a Friday. They would rent the VCP and like 6 movies. And you could tell like they weren't going anywhere all weekend. There were a couple of kids movies, a couple of family movies, and a couple of movies just for mom and dad. And I mean, you're talking about $50, $60 worth of entertainment. But those days are gone. They're just gone. Like you said, the streaming services. And the sucky part is go on a streaming service and type in the movie you want, and they go, the Frighteners is not available, but we do have. I'm like, no, you either have it or you don't, and you don't.
Yeah, the Frighteners is not available.
I know it's currently not available on streaming.
Not for quote unquote free anyway.
No,
it's funny though. I remember those rented VCRs too, because I worked at a local video store at one point, and I think we had like 1 or 2 that they would rent. But the thing is, it was always like the equivalent of those carpet steamers you could rent at the supermarket. That was like locked against the wall.
Yes, the Stanley steamer.
Yeah.
Now, see, I worked at a mom and pop before I graduated to Blockbuster. And at the mom and pop, he rented VCRs, but because he was just mom and pop, it was a VCR in a suitcase. And we would hand the suitcase to the customer with the VCR in it and the cables and the instructions. And oh my God, what a nightmare.
Yeah. And then, the funny thing too with Blockbuster, like I tried to get into Blockbuster, but at that point I was going to film school. And when they found that out, they didn't want to hire me. And I found out, I think through the grapevine there, that because they didn't really want to hire any film students because they were afraid they were going to push all the rare, or the culty horror films and all the other stuff, which I would have, but still, I didn't tell them that. But, instead of their new releases, which they had 8,000 of, and you didn't need to worry about it. So I always thought that was kind of funny because in our local mom and pop, they didn't have a lot of those, the hard to find ones either. But it was I remember I was like, that'd be so cool to work at Blockbuster, not even realizing that, it was kind of the beginning of where they wanted to push towards just the new releases only, and the old stuff was kind of out there.
Nobody wanted catalog titles. They only wanted new releases. And that's why they would get 40 copies of whatever the new release was. But see, the thing that Blockbuster had over the mom and pops is they had programs in place with the studios. So they would get 50 copies of Navy SEALs. And when the rental period had cooled, the studio would buy the rental copies back and then ship them off somewhere else. So Blockbuster made a lot of underhanded deals to sort of push the mom and pop out. Because you go to mom and pop, they were able to buy 2 copies of that movie. But Blockbuster's got 50, so there's a better chance you're going to get it.
Yeah. Well, I think my friend accidentally he might have toppled Blockbuster and got them back a little incidentally, as when I remember he had bought a Laserdisc player, and at least the Blockbusters where we were living there had I was living in the Bay Area at that time, and they had a ton of Laserdiscs for rental also. But I guess they decided to get out of that market, and they were selling them, and for some reason, like everything was coded in the system at like $8 a Laserdisc.
Wow.
And he just bought up so many things. But I think it turned out that it was definitely a mistake and not supposed to be that way. But by that point, he must have bought 100 titles already.
Oh, I would have bought them all. I had a Laserdisc player. I bought a Laserdisc player for one reason and only. Now, Laserdisc player in 1989, I paid $450 for it. Oof. Like, it was a lot of money. And then I bought it because I wanted to buy Ghostbusters on Criterion, because it was the only way to get Ghostbusters letterboxed and to see the whole movie. And for a movie that I knew so well, watching it in letterbox was like watching it for the first time, because all this new information was on the screen and these stupid pan and scans weren't there anymore. And before I sold my Laserdisc player, I think I must have had 300 Laserdiscs. And they weren't cheap, like, they weren't cheap at all.
Yeah, I mean, they ran like normally, like we're like in the 50s and 60s, I think, for if you got a good deal on it. Yeah.
I was trying to explain somebody the other day watching Laserdiscs, because I would put on let's see, what did I watch a lot? I watched Defending Your Life probably 100 times on Laserdisc. I love that movie. And halfway through, I'm like, well, you have to get up and flip it over.
Yeah.
And my kids are like, what? You have to flip it over because the movie's on the other side too. And they were like, Dad, did you grow up in the 1800s?
Well, do you remember before Laserdisc came out, they had those RCA Picture Discs?
I have one right here. You want to see it?
Yeah, because I still have one, I think, in my basement. It was my grandmother's. It doesn't work, but it was the coolest thing. I don't know. Do you guys remember those at all?
I don't remember these. No.
They were like, it was like kind of like a Laserdisc in a case. And when you put the case in, it would suck out the disc, and you pull the case back out.
But again, you'd have
needle. Like, what? It was like two of them, right? You needed at least two of those for
depends on the movie. Like this one, this is Goonies on RCA video disc.
Oh, wow.
Thick plastic, and the movie's on a record in here.
Yeah.
It's the ugliest thing you've ever seen, and I love it. My holy grail is Back to the Future, but it's exceedingly hard to find. It's one of the only formats I don't have the film on.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think my grandmother, she had like Sound of Music, The Fiddler on the Roof. She had all those like her musicals on there when they bought that.
But this, you ever see that thing in movies where when they're testing the zombies, they put the blood and then they spin it around in that little centrifuge?
Mm-hmm.
That's what that player looked like. The whole lid would pop. Wait. That's an original Laserdisc. This one, yeah, like you said, you slide it in and then pull it out, and the record remains inside. Like, it's so archaic.
Yeah, it was like nice and safe inside. You'd end up with this shell of the thing again. It was so weird. And at the time, the technology was supposed to be like the best you could get. Like it was, it was much better than like VHS and stuff and beta. But
you got to turn the TV way up, because the machine's going.
Yeah, it did. Right? It did make a lot of noise, and there was no surround sound back then. So literally, you had to like turn it to like 13 on the
There's
thing.
a reason the movie projector is up and back 30 feet from you, because of the noise it makes.
That's funny. Well, Jeff, I know you're amazing at remembering movie theater experiences. Speaking of movie theaters, and I wanted to ask you if you had any like favorite horror movie theater experiences.
Well, we went to a lot, One of the best ones was, man, I love Nightmare on Elm Street. Like going to the movies and seeing Dream Warriors. Like all my buddies, because we saw the first one on home video because we were too young. The second one on home video because it didn't play a lot of places. Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge was kind of like this slow, tiny little movie, even though it's a sequel to a massively popular. But Dream Warriors was like event movie. Everybody has to go. And man, the kills were so good. And all my buddies were sitting in the aisle screaming and yelling. And he goes, it's prime time, bitch. So much fun. And same with Halloween 4, Return of Michael Myers, because we had never seen Michael Myers on the big screen. It's just way before we could get to go. That was the first time. And I remember sitting with my friend Toby, and there's a sequence where he's like rounding the top of a staircase with his knife. And I turned to Toby and I said, "This is so effing great. Look at that. It's Mike Myers on the big screen." Because we had been denied all that. But then, like, in rapid succession, I went and saw Attack of the Killer Clowns, Pumpkinhead, and then even stuff like Arachnophobia and Nightbreed. I really liked Hellraiser 2, Hellbound. I know that's kind of the dark sheep of the original Hellraiser movies because it's so crazy, but there just was something about the big screen of going into the Cenobite world and seeing all this crazy imagery on the screen. Like, it just blows you out of the theater. And that just doesn't happen anymore. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I remember Nightmare on Elm Street. There was one of the Nightmare on Elm Streets. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it was the one that was in 3D. The one that had the segment in 3D.
Freddy's Dead.
Yeah, I believe that's the one I had to sneak into. We had to buy tickets to some other movie, and I was with a buddy of mine, and it was the only. And I was very goody, and at that age, I thought this was like breaking the law big time. I was mortified. And my buddy was like, "No, we get, this is easy. Just buy a ticket for this movie. We buy our popcorn, we go in, and then we just come out, go to the bathroom, and come back in. And we go into Nightmare on Elm Street." And I was just terrified the whole time. And I remember we came out. We're about to sneak into Nightmare on Elm Street, and one of the employees goes, "Hey," and I'm like, "Oh God, we're busted." He's like, "Hey man, what's up?" And I'm like, and I'm just sitting there going, and I just start confessing, "We bought tickets to this and that. We're not supposed to be in Nightmare." And my buddy turns to me, he goes, "Dude, that's my brother. What are you doing?" It's his brother that worked there. He was just saying hi. So we ended up finally seeing the movie. That's my little Nightmare on Elm Street story.
And see, I'm the same way because I went to the theater late '85 to see Back to the Future. The one was a double theater, 2 screens, one side Back to the Future, the other side Teen Wolf. So I went and saw Back to the Future, and then I left and I went to buy a ticket, and the guy goes, "What are you doing, man?" I said, "Oh, one for Teen Wolf." He goes, "Weren't you just in there?" I said, "Yeah." And he just looked at me like, "You idiot." So yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah, I just felt bad.
I love that theater was totally dominated by Michael J. Fox,
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. But you know what? I did the same thing here at Cerritos Mall. They used to have a twin theater out in the parking lot. And in 1990, I went and saw Mermaids on one side and Welcome Home, Roxy Carmichael on the other. So it was Winona Ryder on both sides. I was the only one in the theater, but I was in there.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think the first horror movie I saw in the theaters, my mom took me because at that point my parents were divorced, and so my mom couldn't get a babysitter one night. She wanted to go out and see something. Either I would kind of have to go with her, and she would just hope I fall asleep. But I remember there was that Frank Langella version of Dracula was the
Dracula
first thing
'79.
Yeah. And I was 7 years old. And like, to me, I remember being like a little freaked out, that scene where he's crawling up the building. But then I did end up falling asleep. So she made the right call in the end. But,
yeah. I convinced my stepdad to take me to see Poltergeist and regretted every minute of it because I think I was 10 and Poltergeist scared the living daylights out of me, man. The toys were coming to life and killing people.
I think that scarred every 80s kid
who
ever saw that movie.
Because every parent saw Steven Spielberg Presents, and it's going to be like E.T. or it's going to be like Raiders, and it's not. It's Toby Hooper at the height of his cocaine fusion, man. It's crazy.
I mean, faces are getting ripped off, It's
that
like
guy rips his face off. And the chicken legs got maggots on it.
You know what's funny about that face ripping scene? Because Brian and I did Poltergeist for one of our episodes.
We did the Slaycation for it. We did the whole series.
That's right. Yeah, we do like a summer Slaycation series where we'll go through a whole franchise. And we went through the whole Poltergeist franchise. And I had not seen Poltergeist in years and years and years. And I was almost dreading that face-off scene because it
until
was
you
so.
saw it.
Yeah, until I saw it, but it was so vivid in my mind, and
Yeah.
then you see it on screen, and it's like maybe 10 seconds. I mean, it's
Yeah.
over like that,
And it looks terrible.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my god, I had this built up. I was like, in my
Yeah.
mind, this scene went on for like 3 or 4 minutes, but it was just that impact when you're a kid, everything just magnified.
The best horror films are the ones that pull back. You know, I'm not a fan of the torture porn Saw movies. I like the stuff that's real subtle, and like they never show Gwyneth Paltrow's head in Seven. They don't have to, because what you imagine is much worse than what's on screen.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the same way.
I think we would be remiss though if we did not let Kevin talk about his favorite 80s horror film, which is probably his favorite horror film of all time, right?
Are we talking about Maximum Overdrive?
Yes, we were talking about. We got to talk about Maximum Overdrive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pure schlock, and schlock has its place.
Right. Yeah, that was filmed in the town where we live, Jeff.
Oh, does it really? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so as kids, you know, in that film, towards the end, there's like a little burger joint, and the kid comes up, and the thing talks to him. It triggers him somehow, and the young blonde kid, he takes the Uzi and he shoots up the drive-through window or the menu. Well, that was owned by my mom's stepfather at the time. So we cruised down to watch Maximum Overdrive be filmed, and Tim, who started reading Stephen King in the womb, basically, got to see Stephen King in his director's chair and behind the camera, and it made such an impression on us when we were young that to this day, I any chance that I get, I always watch Maximum Overdrive. They did a screening here recently, and I nerded out so hard that I think I kind of freaked out the guys that worked on the film.
Didn't you meet like the key grip or something? Like you had him autograph something?
Oh yeah. The
I'm
one
sorry.
guy from the crew said, I've literally never signed anything for anyone in my life.
Yeah, Kevin shows up at this screening for and he's in his full Maximum Overdrive regalia, like the only one in there that's like completely decked out.
He dressed up as the truck, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
Jeff, Kevin, and I went to a really cool screening. They did a screening of the movie on the actual site of where the truck stop stood.
Oh, that's great.
Only a few minutes from the house.
Yeah.
It's right now. I mean, now it's a business and an empty lot because the truck stop was completely fabricated for the movie. But they, when we were there, it was real windy that night, so they couldn't use the inflatable screen. So they ended up projecting the movie on the side of one of the buildings that's actually in the movie.
Oh, that's great.
It was really, really fun.
I was going to say, we actually brought up your name at this screening because the one line goes, before the whole world turned into Maximum Overdrive. And before we could get to it, some other people started slow clapping.
Yeah.
And we said, oh, Jeff Tucker would be so proud right now.
Yes, you have. When the title of the movie is mentioned, you have to clap. That's what it does.
that used to be the biggest thing to me. The one thing I think you get bonus points if not only is it said in the movie, but if it's said in the trailer. You know, like if they actually say it in the trailer and then they continue. Because you remember, like, how many times have you seen a trailer and like you don't see it in the movie? Like, I don't know if you remember this movie. It's always one of my favorite stories. It's so bizarre, but do you remember that movie Nate and Hayes from the 80s?
Nate and Hayes, yeah, that's is it a buddy cop movie or like?
Yeah, it's like, I think it was like a pirates. It was two pirates or something.
Okay.
But I remember, I don't even remember. I just remember at the end of the trailer, they would look at the camera and they go, "You're gonna like it." And my two friends went and saw it just because they said that line and it wasn't in the movie, and they came back so disappointed.
Yeah,
and it just cracked me up because, like, how many times have you seen that? You're like, "Oh, I gotta see that just for that one scene," and it's not in there. And like, especially when it's a line, you know.
I was gonna say, Maximum Overdrive is one of those rarities where the trailer is Stephen King talking about the movie. I'm Stephen King, master of horror. And normally I love those kind of things where it's this special thing about the movie, except obviously Robin Williams talking about toys, because that's so embarrassing. But if the trailer is something special, like the trailer for Terminator 2, the first one, is just the Terminator being made. Dun, dun, dun,
Oh,
dun,
yeah,
dun.
yeah.
Remember that one? I'm a huge fan of movie trailers, but I get really pissed off if the stuff for the trailer's not in the movie. Like, I get really angry. My biggest one is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Uh-oh, that's fucking Tim's gold right there.
There's a sequence in the trailer where he goes, "We're just two happy clams whistling down the road," or Dale Griffith is looking in the mirror and doing an Elvis impression, and it's not in the film, and I just get so angry because there's multiple versions of that film depending on where you get it. The TV version, the video version, the VHS version. That's not in any version. I'm really angry. I'm still bitter.
It's like an uncut, uncut find of the scene there. But
that movie's a big one between me and Brad. I think we went to a horror convention and spent probably the whole 3-hour drive.
Yeah, pretty much all the way back from Atlantic City to Newark Airport, quoting lines. But it's funny too. You said trailers, and this one I know you're gonna love. Because of your love of Back to the Future. But I remember the first time there used to be it was a UHF station locally on Long Island, and they would have a segment like around like 3:30 or 4 o'clock every day where it was like just movie trailers. It was some show that just showed a couple of movie trailers.
Yeah, and I watched a lot of those shows. I know exactly.
Like remember you used to get that? Like there was just shows of trailers and
coming up on coming attractions.
Yeah, like it was. Yeah, I think that's what it was. It might have been called. And they had my friend, I came over, he had a VCR at that point where it was like, he was one of the first of my friends to have one, and so he recorded everything on tape, and he's like, you got to see this trailer. So he put it on, and it was the original Back to the Future trailer where where she pulls up, she goes, "How far are you going?" And he goes, "About 30 years. And and then you saw who it was, Michael J. Fox. I was like, oh my God, like what is this movie? It looks so cool. And I remember like nowadays, like, it was those teaser trailers were the coolest, those like just those like little bits that kind of got you psyched for the movie that nowadays you rarely get. You get way too many scenes.
Now, like the art of the trailer's dead. Like, look at the trailer for Back to the Future where, like you said, it's a woman talking to him driving the DeLorean, and then the logo's completely different. It's a new the prior logo. Or the trailer for Total Recall, where Schwarzenegger's head is coming down from the stars. How would you know if someone stole your mind? Like, I love all that stuff. And nowadays, trailers are inexplicably 4 seconds of the best stuff, and then the trailer begins. Like, they're so afraid you're going to tune away that they put a bunch of crap up front in the sizzle reel. Then the trailer starts, and sometimes the trailers, like, they give away the whole movie, and the movie's not that good to be given away.
Yeah.
Maybe pull something back. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, now you're like getting announcements when trailers are coming out, and you're getting trailers for the trailer.
Yeah. And what's the thing on YouTube where if I want to watch a movie trailer, I have to watch a commercial to get to the movie trailer? The movie trailer is the commercial.
Right.
And sometimes you have to watch a commercial in the middle of the movie trailer.
It just cuts. It's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, it's funny.
It's definitely like funny how how things have changed like that. So I know Tim wants to hear some of these because we love hearing your stories like on the podcast and stuff. So what kind of funny stories have you had like from your video store days?
Well, when I worked for the mom and pop store, they were a very religious family. So they didn't have that little booth with the saloon doors. They didn't have that. We didn't rent anything like that. But we were closed on Christmas, which was like, oh, that's really cool. We're closed on Christmas because of the religious overtones. And then he came to me for the second year I worked there, and he said, Jeff, we're gonna stay open on Christmas Day. We're gonna need you to work Christmas Day. And I said, John, why? I said, you've made a precedent. No one's gonna come in. He said, well, they won't know that we're open, so all the movies will be late.
Oh, wow.
And I said, you're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. So I had to work Christmas Day at the video store. There may be 5 people came in, but the next day, everybody who came in was just so angry because we tricked them. And then when I worked at Blockbuster, of course, they were open on Christmas, so that was a no-brainer. What surprised me most was Christmas Eve, open till midnight, and just a huge line of people renting horror movies. More people rent horror movies over the Christmas holiday than Halloween or any other holiday. I was really shocked at that. We would have no horror movies on the shelf. The whole section just completely empty because of that. The other funny story is, do Do you remember the rental policy when Blockbuster first started?
Vaguely. I remember they had like a weird
Yes, it was the
thing. It
free
was
evening rental.
Yes, that was right. Yes.
You rented movies for 3 evenings. So people would go, oh, 3 days, cool. And I go, no, 3 evenings. And that counts tonight. Tonight's an evening. So they go, so it's a 2-day rental. And I go, well, we like to call it 3 evenings. So there would be every day somebody would come in and I would scan them. And, they drop the movies off and go pick something else. And when they get to the register, there's $9 in late fees. And they would just turn beet red and scream like, you tricked me. And I go, no, it's 3 evenings. And there was a point where I was like, can we just be honest with the customer and say that it's a 2-night rental? It'd make my life so much easier.
Yeah, it's like I don't think anyone will know that they just won't know the struggle there where you had to like get movies back, like by a certain time.
No.
And
you'd have to race across town, like get it over there now. It's going to be late, And then the other side of that was there'd always be 2 or 3 people standing at the return counter waiting for people to return a movie. Is Look Who's Talking coming back? Well, let me look up. There's 18 copies due back before midnight. Well, I'm not leaving till I get it. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Every time.
And you always like prejudge the person. You're like, that person looks like someone that would rent that. I'm going to wait and see what they do. Let them come in. And,
absolutely. Absolutely. The other funny thing, real quick, is you guys ever seen an original video release of Ghost? Remember Ghost with Patrick Swayze?
Oh, yeah.
Paramount played a game with the retailers. Movies came out for rental. The retail on them was $60. They jumped up a little to $70, but most of them were $60. Ghost was $99.95. And if you were a retailer, you had to have Ghost to stay profitable because it was a massive hit. It's weird to think like people don't even think of that movie anymore, but it was a massive hit. And what they did was they put Ghost out for 1 day for sale. So you had to purchase it that day for your store. And the first releases of Ghost were in a white cassette, not a black regular plastic cassette, but a white cassette. And so we would have 20, 30 rental copies of Ghost, always checked out. Huge rental. They gave us 1 to sell. So behind the register, there's 1 copy of Ghost, and all day, women would come up and they'd go, I'm going to get these. Oh, you have a copy of Ghost for sale. I'll go ahead and take that. And I'd go, it's $99.95. Now, most videotapes were $14.95, $12.95. When Teenage Turtles came out, it was $4.99. Batman 89 was $4.99. People would look at me like I was crazy. One lady tried to steal it, like she was going to run out with it. And I said, ma'am, it's $100. And you just try to explain that over and over again. Like you said, you try to explain it now, it's so alien to people. Mm-hmm. But back then, man, it was big business.
Did you have any funny like lost videotape stories? How someone always would inevitably would like lose it or something would happen and they'd be charged like $100 for it.
Yeah, we got a new manager at Blockbuster, this guy named Ali. He was a really nice guy to work for, but he explained to me that Blockbuster, how they ran their business was if the store manager got the shrinkage, which is when you lose a tape, it's shrinkage, right? So if you get the shrinkage down, you get a bigger bonus. So it was behooving to him to get tapes back in the store as quickly as possible. So, usually you had to sign up with a credit card. Most of the rental stuff in the 80s was give me your credit card, you can rent a video. And that was sort of like your deposit just in case. And we'd always say, look, we're not going to charge it. It's just on file. Well, if somebody kept a tape longer than a week, he would print out a list and he would hand it to me. He'd go, Jeff, sell them the tape with their credit card. So I would sit there with the little credit card machine and I would punch in their credit card number, their expiration. Now the customer's not in the store, they're at home. And I would put in, no joke, $350 worth of videotapes. Wow. And hit go. And most of the time it would say transaction failed. But every once in a while, I would get a confirmation number and I would fill out the little credit card slip and put in a register, and then I would hide because you knew the customer was coming in, and you could tell, like, you know, when somebody's what they're going to rent, you know, when they're coming in that they're on fire because I've charged them $350 for like 5 videotapes. The tapes would be returned and we'd reverse the charges usually, but man, those were scary times. The other thing, like if it's hit and it said transaction failed, Ali would go to their house.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my
Imagine
God.
There's a knock at the door and it's the guy from Blockbuster. And they're like, can I help you? Why do you have my videotapes? Are you going to return my videotapes? I want my videotapes back. And they would just go, and I said, Ali, you're going to get shot. Someone is going to shoot you. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. I think working at the video store, when I was at the mom and pop one, every once in a while, you know, something would get lost. But there was one that sticks out. It just was so random. It was that movie, Teresa Russell Horror. I don't know if you remember. It was one of the NC-17 ones. And we think what happened is that somehow someone rented it and their kid found it and took it, you know, and brought it over to their friend's house because the parent came in and said, I don't know what happened to it. I don't know what it is, you know. So we did the whole thing. We said, you know, signed it off. Like I think it was like 3 months later, somehow it turned up. I guess it was at San Jose Airport. Someone found it because it had our sticker on it. And it actually eventually came back to our store. Great. Months later, and the person got charged. I don't know what happened. I never saw them again. They're probably too mortified to come in. Imagine like that's the movie you're like, you're held accountable for.
You ever seen that King of the Hill episode where they accuse Hank of renting adult films and he has to like prove to them that he wasn't him?
Well, that reminds me of a story, a little off topic of the video, but I remember one time when I had just moved back to New York from California, so I hadn't had a permanent job. I was doing a lot of temp jobs, and they hired me to do. I got a temp job one. It was one of the best gigs ever, though. Seriously, it was like I think it was like $40 and dinner for like 3 hours of work, just booking the Tyson Holyfield fight. A cable, you know, when you could call up and you'd call up for pay-per-view,
order it.
Yeah. And I still remember they're like, okay, well, you're good. Like they put me on the phone and a computer and they're like, most of the time you're just going to get people wanting to order, but sometimes they're going to have, you know, they're not going to be able to order it because they either owe money on a pay-per-view. I kid you not. I think out of the 15 situations like that, 14 were because of porn movies that they did not pay for. It never failed. It was hilarious.
Well, always remember when you're talking about the 80s was the time of the video revolution. Like growing up in the 70s, nobody had a VCR. A couple of friends I knew had them, but I didn't know what it was. But then suddenly VCRs became a thing. And same with the internet. Remember, there were years, I was on the internet in 98. And I used to go to work and try to explain to people what it was. And they had no idea what I was talking about. But every one of the major advances in technology, you can thank pornography for doing that.
Yeah.
You know, for videotapes, renting movies, downloading movies, downloading pornography. Pornography drives technology.
It is. It's kind of funny. And, you know, something goes, I meant to say it before too, is kind of funny. So it's like, you know, with the whole videotape thing, it's so funny how like that advanced too into what we have now, because it's like, first of all, it's like, it got to the point of the struggle of you didn't want to have to go to the video store back and forth. Then someone came up with a great idea. Well, how about you order it? We'll send it to you. You rent it and then you send it back. And even that was too much for people. Yeah. You know, it like literally it's like laziness basically, I think was also spawned the streaming service.
Man, I was one of the early adopters of Blockbuster had a rival Netflix service.
Yes.
Where you could rent movies through the mail at Blockbuster. And if you did the 2 or 3 movies at a time, how it worked was you could rent the movie through the mail. And when you returned it to the store, they would give you a physical copy to take home. And when they scanned the mail away disc in, it immediately counted as a return. So then they would immediately start sending another one. So there was a time during that Blockbuster thing, I would have 7 or 8 DVD movies at home and always 3 coming in the mail because I was only using the mail ones to get their free rental at the store. It was astoundingly easy to screw that system.
Yes, I did the same thing, Jeff. That's funny. I exploited the heck out of Blockbuster's mail system. That's probably why they went under, because people like me and you doing that. But yeah, we used to do the same thing. I think there was one time they were giving credit, like if you returned it in the store, you'd get like rental credit too. So I would do that, like return them in the, like I'd almost not even watch them and just be turn them in for credit.
I wasn't watching the ones in the mail. I was only getting them to take them back to the video store, the physical store, to get the credit. It was great.
It's no wonder Netflix destroyed them with that business model.
There's a documentary somewhere in the early days of Netflix, because I have some Netflix and Blockbuster, the little sleeves that the movies came in, because I'm trying to explain to my kids again, like, no, the movies came in the mail.
Yeah.
And they don't know what I'm talking about. But do you know how they did that? How they got the movies out to you so fast? That's a fascinating story. They would hire retirement homes, and they would have senior citizens all day rifling through movies and putting them in the mailer pouches to send out.
Oh my gosh.
Was that like their arts and crafts, like Sexton? You know?
Yes.
So instead of like Burt Wonderstone going over there and entertaining them, they just put them to work to
just put them to work, slapping discs in envelopes, because somebody has to do it. It's not, back then it wasn't done by a machine.
Oh my God. You know what someone needed to do back then, but now it'll never work. But you remember that thing back when we were kids, that Sweet Pickles, that bus that would come by and like bring you books?
Yeah.
Like a bookmobile. Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine they did that with like movies, but like instead you rented Star Wars and like an X-Wing would come by.
Oh, heck yeah.
They missed that opportunity. It was a very small window. They could have done that, but
yeah, the Sweet Pickles commercials made you believe that these characters were going to drop the books off at the house in the bus. That was not the case.
Yeah. Well, they also made you believe that animal cards were exciting.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
I totally forgot about those.
They looked so cool. And when you got it, it was like the most lackluster thing you ever
they were called safari cards, remember? And they'd go, for a special bonus, tell us which animal changes. And like during the commercial, the elephant's trunk would disappear. And the guy would go, did you see that? Like, well, yeah, we did. You told us to keep watch.
Oh my God, I haven't thought about those animal card things forever. There was like, I mean, think about it, the 80s it was like there was so many like things that just exploit you in the weirdest ways possible. That's right, because you did think that Sweet Pickles bus was gonna drive up. You expected to go to McDonald's and there was like this entire land that was gonna of characters that was gonna eat with you,
I was trying to explain to my son the other day, he got up early one morning and I said, you know what, we used to get up early on Saturday morning and watch Saturday morning cartoons. Yeah. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, why would you get up early on Saturday? And I'm like, no, I've been talking about you got up at 6.
Yeah.
Because if you got up at like 8, you missed everything. You had to get up at like 6, sit down, get your breakfast, get ready. Because that's the only time you would ever see cartoons. And he's looking at me like I've thrown 3 hits.
Yeah. They were only on from 6 to like 10:30.
Yeah.
And as soon as Bandstand came on, you're like, oh, day's over. Bandstand's on.
And then remember they would have those shows on like Friday nights, like right at the beginning of the show season, the new season, where it would have like all the characters from the new shows coming out. And then they'd have the Saturday morning preview one where you'd get like, they'd show all the little clips of cartoons.
Join Mr. T as he previews the new lineup on NBC.
Yeah. Like like some of those things like that you miss because it was such a warm feeling to remember that kind of stuff. Like you remember the nights of like, I mean, they have it now, the must see TV kind of stuff that was going on, but it's not the same when you can just get it so easily. When back then it was everything. The smallest show was like an event,
I don't think you can. I tell my kids this all the time, but I was like, I don't think you can understand how much we appreciated everything because that's the only thing we got. If you got a video game, that's the only game you got. Period. So you played it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you didn't just go, oh, I'll just download another one. I don't like this one. I'll just download. I mean, I don't care how terrible the game was. If that's the only one you got, you were going to play it for hours and hours and hours because that's all you had. And you lose that appreciation.
As someone who played a lot of the Empire Strikes Back Atari game, which was just shooting the same camel over and over again, I can attest to that. I convinced myself that it was good.
Yeah.
Well, and that was the funny thing. You made that mistake, and when you picked the wrong game. Like imagine like
yeah.
that. You weren't getting another one for like maybe if you're lucky once a month. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
And you couldn't even look up reviews of it because there was no.
No.
That's
You
how
know,
that's how the ET game made it.
It's
there.
cliche to say. I was going to say I did have the ET game,
Yeah.
and I was like, this is the dumbest effing thing. And then I had the same vein. I had the Raiders of the Lost Ark Atari game. And
Yes.
it's like the same. It's like the same game. It's the same stupid puzzle, lame, stupid game.
That game made no sense. That Raiders of the Lost Ark Atari game, no sense whatsoever.
No, zero.
Well, the ET one was like the ET had to be the first time I think that you could feel real frustration towards a video game. I think nothing tops it when you were climbing all the way up to the top and hit the wrong button and you go.
Yeah, you hit the wrong pixel. There's a great documentary about that ET game. By the way.
With Zack Snyder did it, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah, that was great.
You could take any 80s kid and ask them like, what are the big disappointments along the way? You can start with the Star Wars Holiday Special, and then you can go to the ET game.
What the funny thing is, if you think about it, ET game is impressive for if you saw that documentary, the guy had 6 weeks to come up with that game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He did the best he could.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, if they made an ET game now, you'd have a year ahead of time, before you probably have the script to the movie, he'd have everything you'd need well ahead of time, so it could almost release day and date of the movie. But yeah, it was nothing. And it's funny too, because going back to what Tim said about we appreciate everything. I was talking to my friend the other day about this. It's especially with the pandemic going on. Think of how lucky we are to have the communication alone that we've had at this. Because I remember I was talking to my friend. I said, "Can you imagine if that happened when we were in high school, this pandemic, and we'd be in our houses and we wouldn't be allowed to?" Because I know my dad was totally would have been freaked out. I would have never saw my friend for the entire 2 years, not even outside. He wouldn't even probably let us on the block,
Yeah.
And you would have just called him on the phone, but there would be no video chatting back then. They had those old picture phones if you were lucky, kind of thing. But there was no online video game playing. I think you couldn't even play a 2-player game unless you had a sibling, at that point.
Yeah. Well, plus the some of the 2-player games were stuck on the console, so you had to sit next to each other and hold hands.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Well, our feature movie for this episode is The Frightener. So I guess we should talk a little bit about The Frighteners. This is one that we picked, Jeff, because you're such a big Michael J. Fox fan, obviously, as we are too. But this is one of the few Michael J. Fox movies that could fit into that horror lane for us. I had not seen it. We were talking a little bit before that we started recording. I had not seen this probably since the late 90s. Shortly after it, I think it was released in 96
July.
And I had probably not seen it since probably it came out on DVD is the last time I'd seen it. So I was really kind of looking forward to it because I didn't remember much about it. So do you have any thoughts about, do you remember seeing that in the theater?
Yeah. Well, summer 96, I saw every movie in the theater that was possible. Independence Day, The Rock, Striptease, The Cable Guy, over and over.
Nice. Yep.
Frighteners got lost in the mix. I did go see it because I'm a big Michael J. Fox fan, but I remember leaving the theater that was not a good movie. The problem with The Frighteners, we were talking about earlier, is too much story. It's trying to tell 3 or 4 very distinct stories all simultaneously. I watched it last night and I was struck by, first off, it has so much exposition. Oh my God. They're just constantly telling you this happened years ago and this happened years ago and this happened years ago. It's almost like, did you see Matrix Resurrections?
That's the new one, right?
I haven't seen the new one yet.
Yeah. That one.
Matrix stops, I think 3 times for really long explanations of the plot. You're like, that's not how you make a movie, guys. The Frighteners is a great movie if it's about Michael J. Fox as a guy who can see ghosts and he sends ghosts to people's houses to haunt them so that they have to call him to be the exterminator. That's a great movie. Unfortunately, that's not the movie. And it's so frustrating because it keeps veering off into these really dark moments, which is fine if that's the movie, but The Frighteners was always marketed as a comedy. And it's not very funny. That's the other issue.
That was, I think, just the marketing at the time. You had Michael J. Fox, so it's a comedy. It's like,
yeah, that's what I was telling Brian. I was like, this is a horror comedy that's not particularly scary nor particularly funny. It tries to straddle the line. I think you hit the nail on the head. It just tries to do too many things at one time. And on paper, it looks amazing. You got a score by Danny Elfman. You got Robert Zemeckis involved. You got Peter Jackson.
And look at the cast too.
And Michael J. Fox. You got Jake Busey.
Dee Wallace.
Jeffrey Combs,
McBride, Arlie Ermey. Like you got. Big people in that.
On paper, it looks absolutely amazing. But one thing I also told Brian that kind of struck me when I was watching, I was like, it feels like an 80s movie that was made in the 90s. It's like they were trying to make that big, spectacular Ghostbusters / Gremlins / that big special effects laden movie. But I think the reason it didn't quite work out that way is because those movies, the ones that we remember from back in the 80s, always had a lot of really good comedy in them, and that kind of added a sense of heart to it that this movie just didn't have. It just never got funny enough. And like you said, there was a lot of really dark moments in there where, this movie got an R rating. When this should have been a PG movie all day long, but Peter Jackson couldn't get away from the R rating because of the I think he had some problems with the ratings board.
He wanted to die on this weird hill on this movie with the special effects and what the ghosts are doing. It was always all the stuff I read about the rating that they got had to do with the ghosts being disintegrated in the face and on this and that. And that's maybe the biggest crime, is that they just don't look good. The ghosts don't look good. There's a couple of sequences where the nerdy ghost, I think is Lewis, I think his name is, like his face gets melted off with bug spray, and none of it really works. And I think it's partly, I'm going to forgive the special effects because the special effects are of the time and it's the best they could do. And that's no fault of the filmmaker. The problem I have with it, as coming from the writer's point of view, is that nothing gels, in that some moments the ghosts can go through walls, and other times you can hit them, and other times they can grab things, and other times they can't, and the rules are all over the place. And the finale of the picture, not the finale, the penultimate moment where Michael J. Fox finally he becomes a ghost himself by trying to lower his body temperature. He ends up getting Arlie Ermey's guns and shooting the death character with a ghost gun, and that explodes. None of it makes a lick of sense, and that's the problem I had with the film.
Yeah. See, that's a thing Tim and I have mentioned a couple times in the show because the more you do horror, the more there's each movie has its own set of rules, and I have no problem if the rules are off the wall crazy. Just stick to it though. Stick to one set of rules. Don't go back and forth. You can't have it work here and then change the rules just for a plot point. And that always irks me. It's like stick to one set of rules.
It happens all the time in the Frighteners. Like Jeff was saying, there's parts where the ghost just goes through stuff and parts where it knocks things over. There's parts where and
I was saying, let me ask you, why does he have to drive them around in his car? Like, it was the dumbest moment of the movie. Like, get in the car, we're going. Get in the car, he's a freaking ghost.
Well, Jeff, did you ever a little off topic, but like to last week's episode, 2 weeks ago, did you ever see that movie, The Visitor?
The Visitor.
From the 70s?
I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh my God. No. You got to see that movie because there's a scene like one of those kind of sequences in that where the guy's an alien, yet he comes and he arrives on Earth like through commercial travel and like checks in through customs. And I said, why? He's an
But
alien. Why would he go through the most obnoxious thing that real people on Earth have to deal with, is going on airlines and going through customs? You know,
Yeah.
it's like, why would you not use the power like you have?
He wants
for
to
that?
get the full experience.
I guess I don't know, but that's a movie you
Let's-
need to see and get back to us on. I would love
Yeah.
to see your opinion on that one. It's I don't know if you have the Shudder streaming service or Tubi. Well, Tubi everyone can get. It's free. It's on both. It's on Shudder and Tubi right now. You got to see
It's
that
a
movie.
crazy movie. Yeah. Yeah, I thought the same thing. The whole Michael J. Fox turning into a ghost thing also puzzled me, because I was like, either you're dead or you're not dead. How are you lowering your body temperature? And I don't know.
Well, if you watch the film, right, he's gonna blow his brains out.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
In order to save the wife character, he's gonna blow his brains out. And this is a moment I went, wait a minute, they haven't thought this through. That is really dumb. Like, why would he do that? Why would he blow his brains out on a chance that he could save her from being the number 40 victim or whatever it was?
Yeah,
And
the other
that-
thing I didn't like was how quickly I guess you could explain it like she's falling in love with him or whatever, but she was extremely ready to just believe whatever he said. I mean, even after he's been kind of proven to be this
Charlatan
scam artist, and she just like kind of ignores all that and just goes right into just completely wholeheartedly trusting this guy.
It's worse than that. She's into him while her husband's there, and then her husband dies, and she's like, I'm with Frank now. The love story aspect of the film baffled me, because like her husband's been dead, I think, a day and a half. Like the movie takes place over 2 or 3 days at the most. That's my other thing in movies I love, is break it down and find out how long the movie actually takes place, and you'll actually learn a lot more about the story structure, because like the Rocketeer, I hated the Rocketeer when it first came out because he didn't fly enough. Now it's a masterpiece because the movie takes place over 2 days. Of course, he doesn't fly over 2 days. But in this one, no. First off, the husband dies off screen. You don't even get to see him die. He's just dead. And then she's like, well, I have to go with Frank. And you're like, but your husband, he's just fresh in the ground. It's a very, very strange movie.
He must have been maybe he was making a statement on the marriage or something. I don't know. Well, I wonder if they were, and then that movie's long, right? It's close to 2 hours. I'm wondering if there's a history to that, like there was, because Peter Jackson is not one to shy away from long movies, but I'm wondering with a movie of this type, he wanted to have long, not that I don't know if this would have improved it or not, or just made it bad, but like what if, I wonder how much, if there's stuff that got cut out in a way, or it was.
I know there
sure
is a
there
director.
is.
There is a director's
right?
cut.
There is. I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm
The
interested to
director's
see
cut-
both.
I watched the director's cut last night, and it was 2 hours and 3 or 4 minutes. And I just kept checking my clock every 20 minutes, like, this has got to be over at some point. Please let this be over. But like I said, like we were just talking, like it just keeps going on and on with more exposition. Towards the finale, he's jumping through the time periods where he's back in the murder scene at the hospital, which is so conveniently located behind the lady's house. Like there's just so much convenience in this movie as to be ridiculous. And you ever watch any of those Red Letter Media reviews
I don't know that I've ever seen any of those.
with Mr. Plinkett?
Oh,
He's always-
yes. I
Yeah,
love
okay.
Mr. Plinkett. Okay, yeah.
He's always talking about tone. Like, what's the tone of the movie? And the tone of the movie tells you how to feel. This movie has no tone. It's funny. It's scary. It's a drama about a guy losing his wife and feeling guilt about it. And then, like, on top of everything, I wrote it down. The judge character played by John Astin is raping a mummy and saying he likes it when she lays there.
Yes. I remember I paused that and said, did he just say what I thought he just said? And I had to like actually back it up. And I was like, yeah, that was very cringy.
Oh, it's terrible. It's not even funny. That's the biggest crime. Like, I don't mind a good, funny, crass joke, but it's just not funny. There's just no joke there.
Yeah, it's a very bizarre movie. And now I kind of know why I didn't watch it multiple times after.
And they take the great Jeffrey Combs and they give him enough backstory for 2 movies where he's this undercover guy who was with the Manson family and cults, and he's got tattoos. And I'm telling you, I love Jeffrey Combs. I think he's a master at what he does. His stuff on Deep Space Nine is stellar, but this movie is baffling. I don't know what he's doing in this film. This character is so unlikable and so reprehensible that when they finally shoot him, I was so relieved.
That was, in fact, one of the, I did read a little trivia there that Jeffrey Combs' demise, where he got his head blown off, that was originally, I think he was originally supposed to be a much less gruesome death, but Peter Jackson got pissed off at the ratings board because they kept slapping an R on this thing. So he said, well, I'll give you an R and I'll just have him blow his head off. But it's just another example of how dark this movie is.
Yeah, but they shoot him in the head and instantly he has a ghost head. So the rules don't even apply there. Like, they make no sense. If you just tell me what the rules are, I'll be okay with it. Because like the sequence where he's exterminating their house, he has that radio and the little bag that looks like a coffee bag or something. That's all clever, but it's let's be honest, it's a total ripoff of Ghostbusters, and it's not even subtle. You know, there's even a Ghostbuster line in the film. In the museum, when the judge is shooting, somebody goes, "Good shooting, Tex."
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, yeah.
I'm sorry. My favorite one, just before we move on, is twice in the film, Frank Bannister, Michael J. Fox, is on the phone and says, "I'm on my way," with food in his mouth, which is the direct actual line from Back to the Future when he tells Doc, "I'm on my way to Pointing Hills Mall," to Twin Pines Mall. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very bizarre movie.
Maybe there's a tie-in. Maybe they're in the same universe somehow. That's like one of the alternate universes.
That was actually it was in the trivia that he kept flubbing Michael J. Fox kept flubbing his lines and calling the judge Doc. That's in the trivia.
And then the other one is when he runs over the guy's gnome at the beginning of the movie, the husband's gnome. The husband yells, "Bastard!" as the car's going, and it's almost a line for line reading of when Marty shouts that at the Libyans when they shoot Doc.
That's funny. Yeah.
You know, that whole guy had a Biff vibe to
yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, anyway, yeah. I kind of you got this big Biff vibe from him. So
in any other movie, he would have been the heavy. He would have been the guy that dies, and now it's a problem. But boy, they take care of him quick.
I thought Tim was going to tell when he got Biff blocked, but
oh yeah. So that's a funny story, Jeff. So we went to our listeners are tired.
Yeah, our listeners can scan ahead. They've heard this 100 times.
we went to a horror convention, and Tom Wilson was there, and Zach Galligan was there from Gremlins, and they were kind of in booths right beside each other. So I went to go meet Tom Wilson. And as I was heading up there, Zach Galligan like cut in front of me and started talking to Tom Wilson and saying, I don't remember what he was talking about. And was it you,
lunch.
Brian?
He asked him if he wanted lunch or something.
He asked him if he wanted lunch or something. So was it you, Brian, that came up with that whole line? He's
no,
like,
you said it. Like Tim said, like he turned to me, he just goes, "I just got Biff blocked by Billy Peltzer." So I said, we totally need to sell their shirts in our merchandise store.
That was a great con that we met Leah Thompson, we met Tom Wilson, and we met who was the principal?
Strickland and the mom. Yes. We got to tell him about the elevator.
Oh, you tell him the elevator story.
Frances McCain is in the elevator. You know, of course, played the mom, and so we're in there, and like we literally go into the elevator, and the way the hotel worked in the elevator, you had to put your key card in to get any of the floors. So it's Tim and I and Frances McCain. So we're sitting in there, and she's sitting there like looking around, like trying to figure out. She's putting her key card in. She's hitting the button first. She can't figure it out. So Tim looks at me, and we both start like this like recognition. Both of us like bit our like lips because we told one to say, "Would you stop quit fiddling with that thing and come and eat your dinner?" but we just, you know, it was like that recognition of that line. And like Tim's like, "Don't say it," and I'm like, "Don't say it." But it's like we couldn't like not say it. But but it was good. Yeah, that had some good Back to the Future presence at that convention.
That was cool.
But
Brian, do you remember the SNL sketch with Michael J. Fox and Kevin Nealon gets in the
Oh my
elevator?
God, I've been looking for
Gotta
that
go
sketch and you can't find
in
it.
time. That's
Yeah.
what you guys should have done for the poor lady.
oh yeah, it's not
That-
on Hulu.
I
No,
can't
that's-
find that sketch.
That sketch has been cut out of the episode because of the music rights.
Oh,
wow.
That's why I can't find it. Yeah.
You can catch it when somebody uploads it on one of those Vimeo or other sites, because I've seen it recently, because they all get in the car and they're going, gotta get back in time. Or they're going, what would we do, baby? Yeah, they're doing all his theme songs. It's very good.
remember?
Oh
that.
man, I missed
You know,
that. I gotta
that-
check that down.
That's another thing, another movie that just like never could get. I mean, it had some like cool parts, but never had like, again with the botched video game. I think because that Nintendo Back to the Future game, the original one. Do you remember that, Jeff?
Oh,
The
oh yeah,
Nintendo-
no, that I threw it across the room.
Yeah, I
It's
was
the
like
worst video
Nintendo
game
like
ever made.
yeah at that point Nintendo, you know, it was like you know, at that step up with video games. I still remember like I used to, there were so many games I got frustrated. I think the most bizarre reaction I had to a Nintendo thing was the Nintendo baseball of all things, that original Nintendo baseball. I still remember I was playing and I could never win. And finally I was about to win the game. And like it was like, what, like, I don't know, the guy hit a grand slam and I lost. So I just got up and calmly took the game out of the thing, put it back in his case, and then just threw it in the trash. Like I was so frustrated, but I had to calm down first. So I literally made sure it went back into the package exactly the way I'd gotten it and put it in the garbage. The actual best Back to the Future game was that I don't know if you ever played the thing for GameCube. It was Universal Adventures.
Universal Studio, yeah.
Yeah. That was the best
my
thing because
kid
you
had that.
actually flew the DeLorean like through the
Yeah.
different time periods. It was the only realistic Back to the Future type game.
Yeah. The best one was the Telltale, because they got Bob Gale's approval.
Yeah, that was
And
that was
it-
kind of fun.
It has a nice cameo from Michael J. Fox at the end. But I mean, it's not much of a video game though. It's more like a choose your own adventure that moves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just it's amazing like such a game that was so good like that just could never make a good video game. Even now, like
no.
why not make something, you know,
Well, now we're in the golden age of fleecing the Back to the Future fans. So if there's any money to be made, they will figure a way to wring it out of us. Because after spending the majority of my life collecting Back to the Future stuff, and there wasn't much to collect for 20 plus years, now there's so much junk that I can't even keep up, and I only buy the things that I really like.
I missed that ride though. That attraction was so great.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Oh my God. I mean,
I have pictures from opening day. I had just met the woman who would be my wife, and I took her to Universal Studios Hollywood, and I went dressed as Marty Jr. with the hat and the jacket.
oh, that's
And
awesome.
I got all kinds of pictures because, you know, they've never had a walk around Michael J. Fox, Marty character. So that was a fantastic day.
Yeah, that was cool. But that's why if you get that Back to the Future, I don't know if you saw the Blu-ray set, you can actually, they have all the pre-show stuff.
Yeah.
And the ride itself, you can actually watch through on the disc as a bonus feature, which was pretty cool.
The weird thing about Back to the Future is I spent my high school years idolizing the movie and doing everything I could to somehow make it real. Like I wanted Back to the Future to be real in the worst way. So, you know, I started sneaking into the studio backlot and taking pictures on the sets, and it just really changed my life as far as like it made me want to be a writer, and it was a real it's been a crazy ride. And to now, like, I know a lot of people involved who made the film, so I can you know, delve into the film in ways I've never imagined that I would. And who'd know we'd even still be talking about it this many years later.
Oh yeah, no, I was so obsessed with that movie when it came out too. I watched like pretty much every weekend when like I had a tape of it off a pay-per-view when it first came out, and so I'd watch it all the time every weekend. But I remember, like, even so that I still remember, like, for my birthday that year, I put down a list, like pretty much like I wanted an orange vest. I wanted like this. I wanted like a jean jacket. You know, I wanted everything that like Marty had, just so like so I could dress, because it was such a cool like premise at that age. You know, like I think we were all at the perfect age to appreciate that movie. It was just such a
I wrote a book about Back to the Future because I wanted to distill my thoughts onto the page. Like, why do I like this movie so much? And when I finally did a lot of inward thinking, it occurred to me, and the final summation was that my growing up years were so chaotic and so bizarre and so ugly that the idea that you could get in a machine and make it better and change things really appealed to me. And I was desperate to make it real, even though you can't. You do the best you can with what you were given.
Yeah, Jeff, I want to give you a chance to promote your books.
That's
sure.
I've read the
Back to
I've read the Back to the Future books and the Sixth Key. So yeah, please.
Well, thank you.
Please advertise.
Yeah, I have a book series called The Sixth Key. There's The Sixth Key, The Lost Station, The Infinite Backward, The Ice Temple, and I'm working feverishly on the final book. It's called The Tomorrow Machine. They're young adult novels. They're about 500 pages each. They're what I've been doing for the last decade in my free time. They're really near and dear to my hearts. They're what I'm going to give to my kids when I'm gone, because on Amazon they'll be available forever. And then I also wrote a book about what it was like growing up in the 80s and what Back to the Future means to me. It's called Your Friend in Time: How Back to the Future Changed My Life.
That's an awesome title. First of all, when do you have free time? I know you have like so many things you got between the podcast and your actual job and
I don't sleep much.
Yeah, because I was funny. I was just telling Tim, I said one of my favorite episodes recently that you did was I don't know how recent it was. I was just kind of going through back and listening to them. It was the one you did where you had the whole family on and you just spent 2 hours about your experience of the early California adventure.
Oh yeah.
Oh
it's
my
funny
God.
you say that.
What an episode. I was enjoying that so much because I never got to go until they did that first kind of makeover where they started fixing a lot of the, like Mulholland, the superstar limo was gone already, and all that stuff. So by the time, but like, I thought those were some of the best stories. I tell everyone that needs to listen to that episode if you're a Disney theme park fan or just in general, because it's so great because the whole family gets involved, and it was such like a fun, like almost like like go back in time kind of thing.
The 91 Reasons was just supposed to be me talking about movies. And I was talking to my kids one day and bitching about how awful that theme park was. And they were like, no, Dad, we loved it. It was our childhood. I said, oh, we have to talk about that. So yeah, no, a lot of people have cited that as one of their favorites because it's an appreciation for a park that didn't get a lot of appreciation.
Yeah. Well, I always thought it was kind of odd because when I first heard it was coming out, I said, okay, this is, I understand that Disneyland itself, is always a destination park, but Disney World is much more of that. I think Disneyland still, to me, always, because I grew up going to visit my grandparents out and they lived in Studio City, so I would be out there every year, and every year we'd go to Disney. But I always still thought of it as more of like a locals park kind of thing as opposed. And so I thought it was kind of odd. I'm like, so you're telling the majority of the people that kind of live on the West Coast to visit recreations of the West Coast. I'm like, why? I don't understand why that was the pick. That's like, if someone was going to make like Great Adventure in New Jersey decided to rebrand and make it like, okay, we're going to give you the real New Jersey experience. I'm like, you know what? I just experienced it driving over to you. I don't need any more of it.
They had this stupid idea that they were going to become the one-stop tourist destination, because why go to Hollywood? Why go to the beach? Why go to the mountains? Why go to Napa Valley? It's all going to be here. And the problem is they did it all on the cheap.
Yeah, like those postcard things that they had. But I have to say, now I actually love what they've done with it, going back and forth. Like I like when they had the before the newest thing, when they just had the regular Max Pass. We were going back and forth in the same day, like making and it was so easy. It was so great to hit both parks because, you got like a lot of it was just a much better thing. Like the Carthay Circle restaurant I love there. They really now made it something, I think, a little bit what it probably should have been all along.
But look at what that cost.
Oh yeah.
The redo cost 5 times what it cost to build it in the beginning.
Yeah.
Imagine if they just done it right.
Yeah. And I remember for years hearing I was going to be Westcott and it was going to be this and it was going to be this.
Well, they lied about all that. It was just to get tax breaks from the city.
Yeah. It was
Yeah, I definitely want to do a big California trip at some point. There's so many theme parks on that side of.
Yeah, well, you definitely have to stop at Knott's, right, Jeff?
Yes.
Knott's. What is Knott's?
That's top on my list.
Yeah,
and I grew up going there.
Something very big's coming to Knott's too. Seems
Yeah.
The rumor mill has it that something big may be coming to Knott's.
Yeah, that one. I grew up going to Knott's too. I remember my favorite ride was that like Barry family ride, the original one.
Yeah, the original one, yeah,
ride.
Barry Tales.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody approached me in the park with a printout of that rumored thing that's supposed to be built.
Yeah.
And it had a map of the park with like big drawings of push pins where things were going to be. And he said, can you confirm or deny this? And I said, I can confirm that we are not putting giant push pins in the park. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I feel bad that you get confronted by our coaster fans sometimes. we're
it's all part of the gig.
We're deeply involved in the coaster community, so we see it, all that stuff. But yeah, I love Knott's though. I always think it's like, it's when I was a kid, it was Universal, Knott's, and Disney. That's where we went every year. Every year I visited my grandmother, and that was one of the spots we would go all the time. So.
Jeff, thanks for coming on. I want to be respectful of your time, but guys, go out and watch the Tucker Time videos, because those are great. I had to explain to my wife why I'm watching Barbie color reveal videos at night as a grown man. But
why is a grown man watching a woman color reveal a Barbie? Yes. And what does that even mean?
Yeah. Why is she even questioning you at this point, Tim?
I don't know. She's like, what are you watching? I'm like, it's a Tucker.
I appreciate that. And I can honestly say that when it's about Tucker Time, that Austin is the real star of that show.
Yes.
Because he's not a character. Like he only knows how to be himself. And we're incredibly lucky that someone so odd has decided to call us family.
Yes, everybody loves Austin.
Fans of Austin. Yeah. What's funny, Jeff, is when the worlds collided and Tim and I's mom were like, yeah, I was just talking to Rachel the other day about the American Girl dolls. And we were like, Rachel? That's my friend Rachel Tucker, lives over in California. We're like, and we're thinking like, who are you to talk to Rachel Tucker? You don't know about the beach house. You don't know about the drunks. You don't know anything about Don Bird. You don't know about Don Bird. God damn it. 6 squares.
6 squares, god damn it.
What's funny, Jeff, is you really have created a time machine with 91 Reasons, because Tim and I have listened to every single episode when we're on road trips. That's what we always listen to.
Sorry.
It feels so real. The drunks and the beach house. Yeah. And the mall,
it's real.
And all it's real. So real to us, even though we weren't there.
Before I go, then let me give you like some of the episodes I haven't done yet. My mom got a fur coat once and refused to take it off. like Berg bought her a fur coat. We once hosted at the beach house a foreign exchange student from Finland that we didn't know his name, so we just called him Sven for 2 weeks. Have I talked on the show about Freckles the dog? Does that ring a bell?
No.
My mother got one of those Pomeranian dogs, but it had been tortured by its previous owner. So every time we would go to pet the dog, he would wet himself.
Oh.
So it just became like a nightmare. And then the funniest one for me was my eyes started to go bad around 1985, and I needed glasses, and we could not afford them. So I went to the thrift store every day till I found a pair that kind of did what it needed to do, and I used to wear them around. And I remember finally going to an eye doctor, and the guy said, "You cannot wear glasses that aren't yours. You're gonna go blind." And good times, I think.
Well, I'm in for it. I can't wait.
And for Tucker Time, I just told Rachel, we were driving by the beach house, that we should probably go there and film some stuff just so people could see like it's still there today and what it was.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah. Does it still have the portion that was the antique store?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They have it's a historical building, so they can't alter it in any way.
Right. Yeah. Because
but the problem is
you had the episode where you went back.
Yeah. The problem is that Rachel can't go without like just losing it because there's so many memories packed into that place, and we end up both in tears by the time we leave.
I know. I got to start watching the Tucker Time videos. I haven't seen them yet. I got to watch.
Yeah,
They literally kept me sane for the first part of the pandemic. It was driving down. The Tuckers were insane, but they were keeping me sane.
Yeah.
We did 60 days in a row of complete shows without breaking. And then I finally just says, I can't do anymore. I'm gonna drop dead and my computer's gonna die. So
yeah.
Well, thank you for having me on, you guys.
Yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
God, this
anytime.
was awesome.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't get to mention at the start of the show, but the reason we started Civil Gore was in large part because another podcast we listened to, Coaster Radio. That's kind of the format we formatted our show on. But one of the big reasons was 91 Reasons, and me realizing you didn't have to have a lot of fancy equipment to do a podcast. You could literally do one from inside your car, which is how 91 Reasons started out. So I do appreciate that, Jeff, for that little push to get our show going.
Well, that's what I tell people. There's no magic formula. You just have to want to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So thanks so much for coming on. That was a real treat.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I'm not definitely the Jeff Tucker expert as Kevin and Tim, but I definitely, the last couple of years when Tim really started talking about it really got me into it. So it's like I've enjoyed going back through all the shows and stuff. And
well, I appreciate that. And I did listen to a couple of episodes of Civil Gore in my free time, so I have heard the show. It's very good.
Thank you.
Did you notice the disparity of the dulcet tones versus the obnoxious New Yorker? That really fits the right.
I don't know what you're talking about, eh? I'm podcasting here.
It really fits the title, right?
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you for listening. Yeah, and it's great. Yeah, whenever feel free to come on whenever you want, because I have a feeling that like if there were no time constraints, we'd be on for another like 6 hours.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, Brian. That was definitely one of the favorite interviews I've done in a while because, again, like I said, as a guest we've wanted to have on the show for a long time, and Jeff is just one of those people that we instantly click with because we have had that shared experience of growing up in the 80s.
Yeah, and you interact with him a lot on social media and stuff. And I never really, that was the first time I really had any sort of interaction with him. And it's like I'm like where was he like all my internet life? I should have been interacting with him way more because like I felt like I knew him for years, after 5 minutes of discussion. And again, it's that 80s Bond. It's the kind of person he is, being such a cool guy. So you can't not have fun talking to him, It's just impossible. You have to have fun. That's the rule.
All right, well, we're not going to leave this episode without a beer pairing for the Frighteners. So I want to hear what you came up with for this one, Brian.
So I found one. It's called Speaking with a Ghost.
Nice.
It's by Pipeside Brewing Company from Hampstead, Maryland. And here's the thing. It's funny. When I looked at this is something that only like true horror fans will probably connect. But when I see Pipeside, I see it say pipes. And I always think of that Ghost Watch with Pipes the Ghost.
Oh, yeah, Pipes the Ghost.
And it probably was so unintentional. Probably, I doubt it had anything to do with it. It's just a coincidence. But I thought that's kind of funny.
Nice.
And that's a movie we got to actually do in full thing. I know you had mentioned it one time on a first shot, but we need to get...
maybe during Halloween. Maybe for Halloween.
Yeah, that would be a good Halloween movie. I know that's a Jed Shepard, of host fames. That's one of his favorites.
Yeah, that one was good.
So, but anyway, this has got 6.9%. It's a rye beer, and it says, brewed with a ridiculous amount of rye malt, making for a not-so-fun brew day, but we really like using rye. It says, this beer has a spicy bite from the rye and a balanced citrus, earthy pine flavor, and an aroma contribution from the Sorachi Ace and Simcoe hops. Nice. So that's got to be a really flavorful beer.
Yeah, that sounds.
And for
really
7% for rye, almost 7% for rye, that's pretty strong.
That is pretty strong. Yeah.
Yeah, so that'd be an interesting beer. I might have to track that down and keep an eye out for it.
Very nice. Okay, well, our triple threat from last week, we were looking for a movie. So here were your clues. The title I'm known by was not my original title when first released. Well, that was a kind of a general clue because that could apply to a lot of movies. But we were looking for The Mutilator. The movie's original title was Fall Break, but was changed to The Mutilator for its video release for marketing reasons.
Not 91 reasons, just marketing reasons.
Just one reason, yeah. Clue number 2, I was released in the 80s. It just now announced a sequel. The Mutilator was released in 1984, but this year a sequel was announced. And clue number 3, the tagline I used in my trailer was, school was hell, but vacation was murder. That was the tagline at the end of the official trailer and not found on the poster. So that was a kind of a tricky one. You had to see
so
the
you had to
trailer.
so most of those clues match up, but this one I tried looking for a poster that had that tagline on it, and I found it only in the trailer. So
that's interesting. All right, so this week we're looking for another movie. So listen closely. Here are your clues. Clue number 1: when My Director was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Director, it had multiple first-time distinctions. Clue number 2: two of my stars definitely had a glow about them. And clue number 3: I was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, but only one won. Very interesting.
yeah, look at that. I got back-to-back movie triple threats. 'Cause I
Yeah.
feel like we were just everything was like an actor actress. I wanted to change it up.
All right, well, we have a great Fan Topic Foo listener question this week from our pal Cody. And I love this one. I had an easy answer for this, though.
Yeah.
Especially in light of my recent television watching.
No.
What movie killer do you think you could take in a fight? So I guess I'll start, Brian, because this was just a no-brainer. For me, there's only one killer I could take in a fight, and that's Chucky. Because I am not a strength guy. I don't have upper body strength. I'm a cardio guy. I could outrun people. I think I could outrun Jason, maybe.
Well, yeah, most of those killers walk. You could outrun everybody.
I think I have the stamina to out cardio these guys, but one-on-one fight, no way. I'm just not strong enough. So the only one I can maybe possibly think of would be Chucky, because I've raised 2 kids, so I'm used to wrestling toddlers. So I think I could hold my own there. The only other one I could think maybe would be Ghostface in one of his incarnations where he's like a high school kid.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's funny you said that because those are literally the 2 I was going to pick. But finish your thing, what you were saying, though, about the Ghostface. Cause...
Oh, no, it's just that, obviously Scream has a different killer. I mean, Ghostface is a different killer in every movie. But if you could pick maybe, there's a chance I could take a high school kid on, maybe. I don't know. It would still be kind of a tough battle because, I'm old. They're young. They have a knife. I don't. So I don't know. I'm still going to go with Chucky as the only one I feel confident I could take in a fight. The rest of them just. I mean, who are you going to pick? Leatherface? Nope. You're not going to take him. Michael Myers? Definitely not. Jason? Definitely not. Freddy? Certainly not. I even thought about something like Annabelle the doll, but she's supernatural, so you can't fight the supernatural. There's no way you're going to fight against that. So that's literally the only ones I could think of.
Well, I assume, with all these questions, you're just got to go in the spirit of the questions. I assume, it's not like we could just avoid it. We're in the movie, basically. I'm sure she meant, if you're in the movie.
Now, could you outwit them? Could you outwit Jigsaw? I don't know.
You know why I don't think you can outwit? Because Jigsaw's tough because you don't know what you've done that might have pissed him off.
Yeah.
I mean, think, Tim, you're in IT, right?
Yeah.
So what if you he was one of your employees, you couldn't fix one of his problems that led to his firing. You have no idea that happened. And now he's after you, and he's like, I'll get to Tim. Who knows? I think, Michael Myers, I think you could outrun him really, but again, it's you'd have to know he's coming after you. And I think the spirit of the question would kind of surmise that you have to be you're in that movie. So yeah, those are the 2 I thought of too. It's kind of funny. It's Chucky because of his size. I mean, yeah, he's little and everything, but look, a little kid beat Chucky in the end, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see why we couldn't. I mean, yes, he keeps coming back, but at the same time, more people have defeated him on a regular basis. I mean, mostly it's the people that got killed by him are kind of stupid.
Well, also, in the spirit of the question, it said, could you take in a fight? Which to me means you're facing off. It's not like
you have to face him.
It's not like he's coming after you in surprise. He's not jumping out of you. I mean, in a fight, we're in the fight. We're both aware of each other. There's no surprise factor. It's got Chucky. I think I could just kick him across the room.
Here's the other one, and this is maybe a total cop out, and it sounds horrible, but I think I could probably take Mrs. Voorhees also. I don't if I'm in a direct fight and she's not sneaking up on me. Yes. I mean, she's old. I'm old too, but she was older.
She was older than you are now. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and so, and plus she wears that turtleneck. You just get her to run a little bit. She's going to sweat and get tired. So I think I think those are the three if I had to pick. I was like trying to think of like another obscure one, and it's like you immediately go to like the big ones, right?
Yeah. No, it can't be a big person. I've never truly fought somebody in my life. There's no way. There's just no way I would win a hand-to-hand battle.
Now here's one. Do you think? And I think you could. I bet you though you could beat Roy Jason technically. You might not beat real Jason Voorhees, but you could probably beat Roy Jason.
I don't know, man.
I mean, he's a big dude, but he could be hurt. Like the real Jason, you can only like stun, but this guy, you could actually kill him.
I don't know. I have no faith in my strength.
Dudley beat him from Different Strokes. Come on.
I have no faith.
Yeah, he had some help, but I don't know. I like this question because this has got to be almost like the most age-old question, like, whenever you watch a horror movie, you always want to put yourself in that scenario, and can you beat him? Oh, here's one, Tim. Here's an interesting one. I don't know, maybe not the first one, but maybe like the second one. Do you think he could beat any of the Jaws sharks?
No.
None of them?
I can't swim well enough, and no. No, there's just no way. I'm not.
But Richard Dreyfuss helped beat him.
Even Quint was a shark hunter.
He couldn't even beat Bill Murray in but he managed to find a way to beat the shark.
Yeah, but Quint was a shark hunter, and he got devoured. So there's just no way. No, I'm not even going to take on Jaws.
Really? No Jaws.
No.
What about the alligators in Kroll? Does that?
Nope. I'm pathetic. The only thing I can actually beat up is a child.
Well, not even a child. It's a child doll. It's not even an actual child.
No, probably not even an actual child.
So think about it.
Be a doll.
We've surmised that between the both of us, we can beat up a child's doll, an old woman, and a teenager. And you know what though? And what's funny is that we probably only beat the teenager because he's wearing like a horrible costume for like really like you want to stalk. It's like draped down on him.
Yeah.
So you could easily like grab it and like tie it up and
I'm only going 50-50 on the teenager. Like I'm putting it even odds, coin flip. I'm not even confident in that.
True. That is true. But still, I think we could definitely both take Mrs. Voorhees, though. I think.
Yeah, it may take both of us, but we could do it.
Yeah, I mean, and then definitely, yeah. But Freddy, you can't. Any of the supernatural ones, I don't think we are tough because if you're in a true fight with them, it's a fight.
Yeah, you can't fight supernatural.
It's not like it's not like you're solving the whole movie. So like, like maybe if you had the whole movie to outsmart them, but that's not what this says. It says in a fight.
Yeah,
we're taking Cody literally.
Yeah.
Oh, and speaking of Cody, I want to thank her for I started watching those videos she suggested, the ones where it's like what's it, the film theorists, where they have a whole bunch of videos. I watched that one with Jason if he could teleport, which was pretty funny. And the Blair Witch one, which was interesting. And I've heard that Blair Witch theory before, and I've heard it the other way around, where like they said, I heard a theory where Heather was trying to bring the two guys in the wood to make sure they would be killed. So I've heard two different ways, but it's really interesting. It's kind of like those funny videos. You watch like those typical YouTube videos of like where they analyze a movie. That's what you kind of get here. Just usually the topic is like either a topic that's been posed or just like an interesting theory. The Jason, I thought this Jason one was really well done especially because they gave him the teleport in the video game to explain how he's always around his victim. So, and they actually came to the conclusion that no, he could not teleport. They came up with a legit reason every time how it was not him teleporting, and I thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah, so definitely check those out if you get a chance.
All right, guys. Well, we will see you back here next week. Another great interview lined up.
Yeah, we got to pick a movie. We don't have the movie yet, but we have, and once again, we're like swimming in screeners. We need to like catch up on too. We just got another one today that looked really interesting. So we need to, I think, organize them in like the embargo order and try and figure it out so we can go start knocking some of these off.
All right, guys. Well, take care and we'll see you soon.